Peace, and welcome to 10 video game themes that sound oddly familiar. We've had some really good submissions lately, so we wanted to showcase a few. Also, we're going back to a 1 through 10 oddly scale. It gives more flexibility, and it just seems to fit better. Anyways, on with the show. Our first entry is from the European and Japanese soundtrack of Sonic CD. You can hear this riff on multiple themes from Metallic Madness. Here's the bad theme. And that sounds a little bit similar to the Stage 4 theme from the arcade game Lethal Thunder. Submitted by Beal98765, this one is similar enough to receive a 7 out of 10 because it's an easy one to hear. Appearing around the 15-second mark of the Bad Future theme, Sonic CD dates back to September 23, 1993, the Japanese release date. Lethal Thunder, also known as Thunder Blaster, was released in 1991, and the riff appears right at the beginning of the Stage 4 theme. It's impossible to miss. As we stated, you can find the theme on other Metallic Madness entries. Here's the present theme. Our next entry comes from Castlevania, Aria of Sorrow, The Last Battle. And that may sound a little bit like the Terminator and the Tunnel Chase theme. Submitted by Scotty the Great One, that bass line sure reminds me of the Terminator. Enough to where this entry receives a 6 out of 10. It's pretty much only the bass, but it goes on throughout almost the entire theme. And just in case you missed this entry from a previous episode, the Tunnel Chase theme has inspired other themes as well. Here's one quick example. Aria of Sorrow was released almost 20 years after the Terminator, 1984 and 2003 respectively. So not only is this one very much possible, but it's not even the first game that may have taken inspiration from the Terminator soundtrack. In our last episode, we showcased Lagrange Point and the Arrival and Departure theme. Now let's compare that to the Aerosmith song titled Walk This Way. Submitted by at least 4 people. When we put this entry in our previous episode, we compared it to West Street Mob's track, Ooh Baby, but a few sharp-eared listeners picked up the Aerosmith similarity. We give this one a 6 out of 10. Once you hear it, you can never unhear it. Walk This Way has a remix featuring Run DMC, and there's even a Japanese version, featuring a friend of mine. Here's Walk This Way by Sphere of Influence and Sora 3000.
Walk this way. Now there's a backseat. That's always under.
Up next is from Diddy Kong Racing. Here's Everfrost Peak. And if you've watched our previous episode, you might have already recognized this as the Flea Waltz. Submitted by longtime friend Game Draco, this is one of those oddly entries where I knew both themes, but I never made the connection. so shout out to Draco for pointing this one out. We'll give this one a 7 out of 10 on the Oddly scale. It's pretty much only that intro part, but it is quite similar. Flea Waltz is a public domain track, and it's quite popular, so finding this in a game is really no surprise. Next up comes from Sin and Punishment, Star Successor. The Stage 3 theme, Sky Fortress. And that has a certain Doom feel to it. Here's At Doom's Gate. Submitted by Goliath Virtual, this one takes some listening to, and it might be a popular riff. I think I've heard it somewhere else before. On the Oddly scale, we have this a 5 out of 10, and that's a low 5, close to a high 4. Sin and Punishment was released in 2009, and Doom from 1993. Doom has one of the most well-known soundtracks of the 90s, so it may have inspired Sin and Punishment. However, I think this one is a coincidence. Our next Oddly entry comes from Dragon Quest II, the ending theme titled Recounting the Journey. And here's a Catholic hymn titled On Eagle's Wings.
He will raise you up on eagle's wings.
Submitted by Morgill27, we are gonna rank this one an 8 out of 10. It's the same melody for the most part, but the tempos are different. On Eagle's Wings dates back to 1976, which to me is a surprise. I thought it was much older. Dragon Quest II, released in North America as Dragon Warrior 2, was first released back in 1987, and its soundtrack was composed and arranged by Koichi Sugiyama, the man behind the majority of the music in the franchise. He composed over 500 themes for the Dragon Quest series. Quite an accomplishment.
He will raise you up on eagle's wings.
Our next entry comes from Super Spy Hunter, the Stage 1 theme. Here's Fester's Quest, the Overworld theme. Submitted by Phoenix Mix Gaming, this one receives a 5 out of 10 on the Oddly scale. It's mainly that beginning intro riff. If that riff was the only thing in common, we might have given it a 4. But with further inspection, they are both Sunsoft games. And upon even further inspection, they have the same composer. Next up, we have an entry from Xenogears, titled Invasion. And that has a little bit of the same feel as Mr. Mister's song titled Broken Wings. Submitted by SSUS, this sure has the same feel. The bass and the percussions both sound similar. We rank it a 6 out of 10. It's not exact by any means, but we feel it's close enough to warrant a 6. I would also like to take this one a step further. Here's the Turks theme from Final Fantasy VII. The Mr. song was released in 1985, Final Fantasy VII in 1997, and Xenogears in 1998. So it's possible both games had some influence from Broken Wings. Final Fantasy VII receives a 5 out of 10 on the Oddly scale. All three of these are kind of similar when it comes to the overall vibe. Our second to last entry today comes from Final Fantasy Legend II, the battle theme. And for the second episode in a row, here's Glenn Frey, The Heat Is On. Submitted by Jellyvelly, it does have a similar riff. Maybe not the exact same, but close enough to receive a 5 out of 10 on the Oddly scale. Final Fantasy Legend II was released in 1990 and the Glenn Frey track in 1984, and it was quite popular. Being on the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack may have helped it out some. Not that Glenn Frey needed any help, he was a member of the Eagles who as a collective sold more than 200 million albums worldwide, making them quite successful. Our last entry today comes from GoldenEye 007, the Frigate Stage theme. And this one comes from Goldfinger by Dame Shirley Bassey. Submitted by Wemblestein, I heard the similarity once I listened and paid attention, but I never made the connection before this submission. This one was similar enough, and with source material being from the same IP, I had a feeling it might be on purpose. So I contacted Mr. Grant Kirkhope, and he confirmed. Frigate's first few notes are inspired by Goldfinger's first few notes. On our Oddly scale, we're going to give this one a 007 out of 10, just because it was confirmed by the composer himself. It is only 2 notes after all. Shout out to Wemblestein and Mr. Kirkhope. This was one of my favorite entries for a long time. So I want to make sure to say thanks to everyone for all the comments on the last video. With all those comments, we're gonna do another viewer submission episode. And of course, last but never ever least, shout out to Golden Tier patrons. Bearsona, Quantum X, MJJ, Shadow Juste, and FancyJ. I am ICC. Thanks for watching. Peace.